My answer, based on my own experience, is the longest distance for me to travel, it was not from Spain to Chile or from Chile to US. The longest distance I have traveled in my life is from my head to my heart. Hello, how are you, fellow seekers? You can call me Javi or Dr. Rubio, I prefer just Javi. I am a PhD in cellular and molecular biology, scientist by profession and believer by conviction. I'm also convinced that science and faith are branches of the same tree, and both seek the truth behind things, visible and invisible. When we scientists want to seek answers to questions, we postulate hypotheses and design experiments applying the scientific method. Here, I want to make hypotheses and applying scientific method to questions that most of us have. Our own life is the best lab where we can test our hypotheses and get evidence to convince us of what we believe in. Today, we are still within the framework of the hypothesis that I developed in the episode 6. I live within God. Last week, we explored the question, what prevents us from feeling and recognizing God? Let's talk today about the next question. Assuming that we recognize that God is with us and feeling Him, what prevents me from listening to His voice and understanding what He wants to tell me and to each one of us? My hypothesis is we cannot understand God because we don't learn His language. When we arrived to the US 9 years ago, I could read in English and write scientific articles, but I could not understand well the people in the real life. The realtor before renting a house, the MBA when I need to get my driver license. My kids were 3 and 5 years old at that time and only knew to count 1 to 10 in English. After 3 months here in the school, we realized that they could communicate in English with friends and understand more than us. By the way, they are now our English teachers. I can say they still feel embarrassed when we speak with our heavy accent and when we can't pronounce some words well. At that point, I have assumed that I will never speak English as they speak. Why is that, if I have studied English for longer than they have been alive? Well, there are scientific evidence that show the ability to learn a new language increase in the early ages and decrease in the adulthood. This is why for me speaking English when I was more than 35 it was so difficult. And thanks God I have my very good friend and co-seeker fellow Maria Elena Howard that is helping me with the English version of these videos. She is an official translator and speaks several languages. If you want some references, you can check it out, a study done by researchers from MIT, a prestigious institution, that show that optimal results for learning a new language are obtained before the age of 10. Furthermore, some author says that young children can acquire native-like fluency as easily as they learn to walk. Wow. This is also in a paper from Maria Elena. Well, I tell you that I have confirmed in our own family that data doing the experiment with me, my wife, and my 2 kids who were under 10 when we arrived in the US. When I was in college, I had to start reading in English because the scientific language used worldwide to publish is English. I remember I had to present a scientific paper with one of my best friends in the cellular biology course. We had to pick up a title from a list and I selected one that I thought was about neurons because I read the words Synaptonemal Complex. And it sounds to me close to synapses, that are where two neurons make contact and communicate by means of neurotransmitters. How was my surprise when trying to translate the paper word by word, I discovered that synaptonemal complex, it refers to the chromosomes when they are in division. The synaptonemal complex is a protein structure that forms between homologous chromosomes, two pairs of sister chromatids, during meiosis. Meiosis is a special division that produces cells with half the number of chromosomes than the original cell. This process is necessary for producing the male cells or sperm and female cells or eggs. So this has nothing to do with neurons, as I guessed at first reading. I remember trying to translate a technique used to identify proteins called Western blot. And if you try to translate word by word, doesn't make sense. I assure you that Western blot, it has nothing to do with the people from the west coast of US. I'm not kidding you, but it took for me and my friend 3 months to understand and prepare that paper for a dissertation. Why do I tell you this? Because for understanding scientific papers, you need to learn concepts and read many papers about the same topic. In a similar way, I can tell you that it takes time to understand what God wants to tell you. Listen to Him in the middle of other voices and languages. The Gospels are written in simple words that everybody can understand, at least with the mind. Jesus speaks in simple words. He uses daily life events to explain spiritual realities. He uses words that are familiar for us: seeds, sower, house, foundation, vine, branches, bread, wine. But why there are people and saints that praying with the gospel get transformed and can do things that before they couldn't, while other people read the gospel without any effect in their lives? Please, listen. You don't need only to read many times the gospels. The most important is to understand that God speaks from the heart, and His words are meant to be received with the heart, although need to be read and processed by your brain. Take now 3 seconds to think about this question. What is the longest distance a human being can walk through? My answer, based on my own experience, is the longest distance for me to travel, it was not from Spain to Chile or from Chile to US. The longest distance I have traveled in my life is from my head to my heart. Yes, I will repeat. The longest distance I have traveled is from my head to my heart. And you? Do you know how to go from your mind, maybe a scientific mind that thinks in terms of facts, or maybe a less complicated mind that thinks about get fun, girls, news? I will tell you that the key is to become like little children. Remember the study that showed children under 10 are more skillful to learn a new language? Now we are talking about learning the language of the heart, the language that God speaks. Before learning the language of the heart, I got upset when I heard that passage from the Gospel by Matthew in the chapter 11, verse 25. Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. I really believed that I couldn't listen to God's voice and understand Him because I consider myself intelligent. As always, I had the scientific mind. I was thinking, this is the reason why I can't hear God, because I am intelligent. Therefore, only the people that do not have higher education or think more simplistically can understand Him. It took me years until those words went down to my heart. It was when I felt I had achieved everything I wanted at the end of my PhD, but at the same time I felt thirstier and more vulnerable, more confused about what to do next with my life. It was when I felt like a helpless child that I heard God's voice. That those words went down from my head to my heart. The reason behind is not that God is discriminating the wise and learned people, the PhD and doctors including. No, the reason is that only the children know how to talk and receive from the heart. This is why God has revealed his secrets to the ones that are like little children. The secret of forgiveness, for example. When kids fight and one makes another cry, it doesn't take more than few minutes to continue playing together without resentment. Unfortunately, when we grow, it looks like we lose that ability. The same siblings can have a disagreement about something, money, and stop talking between them for years. So, I can be wise with my brain for the mysteries of the visible things, but full with my heart for the mysteries of the invisible things. You need to become like little children to enter in the mysteries of the heart. I tested that hypothesis in my life. In Matthew chapter 18, verse 3 said, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." With the head, you could understand those words of Jesus like a threat, but it's not. He doesn't say, if you don't become like a little children. It says, unless you become like a little children. When a mom or dad says to his child that doesn't like to study, unless you start to study and do homework, you will probably never get a good paid job. It is not a punishment, it is an advice. So when you hear Jesus saying, unless you become like a little children, it is an advice. Take that advice if you want to understand what God is trying to tell you in your personal life. Remember that for spiritually, this is similar to the MIT paper for learning a second language. The earlier you start to learn, the better. So, in the language of the heart, the younger you become and the more humble you are, the sooner you will start to hear clearly and to understand God's voice in your life. Sometimes we have to fall down very low in our life to reach that internal attitude, to become like little children that recognize are disoriented, that need unconditional love, that seek for more but don't know where to find it, that recognize that are full of things, titles, money, but are empty inside. Do not wait to have those lowly moments. Start recognizing today who you are, what you are seeking, and what you need. Become like a little child and practice the language of God that talk from heart to heart, not head to head. Find a way to travel from your head to your heart and share that finding with others. Big hug!